you really do have to prioritize yourself, not just for to do the things you want to do now, but that investment, just like any other investment, you have to be investing for the future. So at my age, had I not started the journey of eating right and exercising and all of those things 20, 30 years ago, I would be in a much different place right now. I might not be in a place where I am excited and
Yes.
energized to be on my journey of my second career.
Great. So, good morning. Thank you so much for joining our Spark podcast. Today we have a dynamic and very exciting guest with us, Miss Tanya Spencer. I'm very excited to get to know you more and get to know about your story, your success, your career, and all of the things in between. So, if you would like to just take the floor and give us a lovely introduction.
Absolutely, Tanya Spencer. I am a coach. I am a speaker. I'm an aspiring board member, paid board member, because I already sit on a number of boards, and entrepreneur. And that is all my second career. I spent 31 years within corporate America as a sales and marketing executive, as a leadership development executive, as a chief diversity officer. So this is the second round for me, and I'm really super excited for it.
And congratulations on being able to enjoy a second career.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I really want to go back to the beginning and talk about how you started. Tell us, because I know that you're also an HBCU grad, and our podcast is really in love with all our HBCUs, and we're a huge advocate of historically Black colleges. So tell us a bit about yours and what your degree was in.
Absolutely. So I will go all the way back to high school and AP Physics.
Okay.
And we spent time working on electrical circuit boards. And we simply had to figure out a problem, wire them the right way so the light would turn on. It sounds really, really super simple, but I had so much fun doing that. I was have always been good in math, have always enjoyed science. So I said, you know what? I'm going to major in electrical engineering. I knew that fairly early on, way, way, way back in the day. Uh, who was it? Folgers. I can't remember the name of it, but they had an HBCU college tour that used to go around the country. And I went to one in Chicago. That's where I was born and raised, grew up. And I said, I want to major in math and science. So I only want to I don't want to go through all of these schools. I just want to see the ones where I can major in engineering, math, science, something like that. So they gave me five schools. I won't name the five schools, but I will say I went to the Tuskegee booth. And the Tuskegee booth wasn't the most elaborate booth. It was literally a backsplash and two chairs. And so I walked up and said, hi, I was told that Tuskegee is good for math and science and engineering, and I just want to learn more. And the gentleman said, have a seat. Let's sit down and we talk. And we sat down and we talked. And I don't know if I even went to see any of the other schools. My father had been adamant that I would go to an HBCU. He didn't even come walk through the session with me. I walked back outside where I knew he was sitting and waiting for me, and I said, I'm done. I saw everything I needed to see. I said, it's Tuskegee or it's nothing. So I'm only applying to one HBCU. It will be Tuskegee. When it came time, I applied to University of Illinois, I applied to Purdue, I applied to Tuskegee. Those were the only three schools. I got into all three, couldn't afford Purdue. Actually was planning to go to University of Illinois, and Tuskegee came through with a summer program for me to go to that they would pay. And I said, perfect, I'll go down and hang out there for the summer. Wound up getting a full scholarship and never looked back. So I
Wow.
majored in electrical engineering, graduated from Tuskegee in electrical engineering. That is my home, that is my heart. As much as I love Chicago, Tuskegee is that place where I just kind of grew up. Those were my formative years where I learned so much more. I go back almost every year for homecoming as much as I can because it's the one place where I can really, truly, authentically be me. And
Mhm.
it's people that knew me before I was as polished or as I am today. Matter of fact, they have to say, "Oh no, we don't want corporate Tanya. Like put corporate
Hmm.
Tanya down. We don't want her. We want Tanya."
Yes.
And so I just love it. Tuskegee is family. It's an amazing environment to grow in. The history on the campus of the buildings that were built by students over 100 years ago. The museum, George Washington Carver Museum, that's there. It just spoke to my soul from the moment I got to campus. Literally, my father drove me down, dropped me off, put everything in the dorm room, said, "Okay, love you, bye." We getting back in the car and driving back to Chicago. I walked around campus and was in love from the first moment.
Yes. I have so many questions because to be an electrical engineer, to say I'm going for electrical engineering, so in what class were you? What was your graduating class?
I graduated in 93.
In 93, right? Or before when you just declare this major. That's huge because we are thinking about women in STEM, Black women in STEM now. And so
Yeah.
for you to have that foresight or this vision to say, this is where I want to be, love that. And I would love if you spoke to it. But then HBCU grad here as well. There is something about the personal development you get going to historically Black college. And for your father to be the reason to say, I want you to go to an HBCU. Have you spoke to him about that? Like, Dad, what did you want for me to get when I go to one of these schools?
It's super interesting. Unfortunately, my dad passed away over 20 years ago. And so I was 29 when he passed away. It wasn't quite in that mind space of talking to my elders and finding out. But my brother and I got together. We were speaking over this past Christmas holiday about what possibly made our dad push so hard for HBCUs. And what we actually came to was that it was actually our aunt, so
Mm.
his brother's wife, who was a PhD in nursing. She taught at Northwestern, but she also taught at Southern. I believe she taught at Xavier as well. And and so that experience, we think she was the one to say, I have been through all of these universities. I have experiences with all of them. You want your children to go to HBCUs. So our dad just pushed hard. That was one of his brothers he was closest to. So it's
Yes.
where we spent a lot of time with them, with our cousins as well there. And I think that was the influence. I think she just saw that and continued to influence us as that's where we should go. Our My brother went to FAMU. I went to Tuskegee. My children both went to HBCU, so our son followed us to Tuskegee. We were super excited for that. My daughter said, "Absolutely not. I am not going to small town USA. That's not my space." She went to Howard. The first week she was at Howard, I called her. She was at the mall. I was like, "How did you get to the mall?" She was like, "On the metro. How else am I going to get to the mall?" And I was like, "You're a suburban child. What are you doing on the metro?" She was like, "Girl, please." So
See, even her first week, this
first week,
experience of just getting out into the world, growing.
first week, and hasn't gone back. So she, Howard undergrad, NYU law school, but went back to DC, and she's living and working in DC now because that was her thing.
Here go a plug because you're an HBCU grad that went on to have a phenomenal career. Generationally, your daughter goes to an HBCU, gets into a top graduate program. These our schools produce.
You know what? There's never been a doubt. There's actually, and I need to find the study so that I can accurately reflect it. But it goes back to your previous question. There was a study done on women who
Mhm.
go to all women colleges. And it talked about the experience of going to an all female college as one where you don't have to compete. And so you are really able to grow into your own as your own, right? You're able to grow as a woman versus trying to grow and compete against men. And so it just builds this level of confidence. I feel very strongly that the same thing applies to HBCUs. It is a safe environment for us to really truly be able to grow. There are no limits. So, there's the study of the fleas, right? When you put a cap on them, even when you take the cap off, they've learned to jump as high as the lid on that jar. And so when you take the lid off, they're only going to jump as high as the lid on that jar. There is no lid at an HBCU. We are able to fly as high as we want to, and so we do. And I believe that's the beauty and the power. Until we live in a country and a world where we are truly not limited by the culture around us, where we're not in the culture that continues to try to tell us that we're less than, HBCUs are going to continue to be amazingly necessary. That's not to say that someone cannot thrive at another school. So I don't want to shoot
Yes.
down other schools. I'm just saying, for me, for my family, the experience that my children had, our HBCUs have been amazing for us, and I would highly recommend them.
You know what, Miss Tanya, I appreciate the way that you brought in research to speak to this idea, a counter argument. Um, so interesting. I had the opposite experience. When I
Mm,
was applying to colleges in high school, my father was adamant, do not go to an HBCU.
yeah,
So my mom was the reason I went to one because she said that's where you have to go. And my dad says no, because
yeah,
it's this idea of smaller schools, less resources, and go. I would be one of many as opposed to going to a predominantly white institution and standing out. That
yeah,
this was his thought process, right? And I'm thinking he ultimately tells me, Jordan, I'm glad you didn't listen to me. Because he saw what Lincoln was able to provide for me, both in character development, personal development. But for you to say, when we're not in competition,
yeah,
we are able to grow, we're able to thrive because we're just focusing on our own greatness and growth.
yeah,
I absolutely love that counter argument. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
absolutely.
Um, and on the conversation of identity, because that's important, especially with the research with women at women's schools. I think identity is both our superpower, right? Like the different identities that we wear and the hats that we carry with us. But then, to your point, in our culture, it can also be a ceiling, a drawback, an obstacle. And I want to think about that in terms of like our times right now and the way that we see diversity, inclusion, equity under attack, being rolled back.
Yeah.
And so these identities are being compromised or complicated in these spaces. So can you speak to this idea of how can we continue to thrive when these identities are almost like being removed? We're not supposed to have that in the workspace, in our education spaces.
I think um, living and working outside of the United States gave me a perspective that there is more than one way to thrive.
Mm,
And there is a lot of benefit, I would say, to this Western culture of hard competition and get it done, and like there is a lot of benefit to that, and you've seen the economic growth that we've been able to experience through that. But it's not the only way to be, and it's not the only way to thrive. When I spent some time, just a little bit of time in Japan, and you see this culture of community, respect for everyone. It's the only place that I've been in the world where you see the tactile pavements, which is what people with who are vision impaired can use in order to be able to know where they're going, because there's a tactile pavement. So you'll see them in the US, but only at intersections. So it's a warning. You're about to go to an intersection. You see them along the streets so that people can walk and follow them along the streets, and specifically in Tokyo. And so I do think that there are other ways that we can exist. And so I'm happy that I've had that experience. What I will say, being at an HBCU helped me discover more about myself. So to give a little bit more of my identity, my mother is Mexican. I grew up in the 70s and 80s where being mixed race was not necessarily a good thing to be, right? Even in the Black community, it wasn't
yes.
always, looked at favorably, or it actually was looked at negatively in a lot of spaces. Now, I say that, and I don't want to diminish the Black community, because the Black community is my tribe. So for every person that tried to put me down for being mixed race, there were 10 more that were like, "Baby, come on,
Yep.
you Black, just come on," right? So I love that, but hearing and seeing from the white community, from the Hispanic community, from parts of the Black community, that there was something wrong with me just because of how I was, that it messes with your head. And I think that's part of what the challenge in our society right now is that our society and our media continues to send messaging that Black is less than, that Black is stigmatized. And I think the biggest problem with that is that we believe it. We start to believe it. It's in our media, and we don't even know we're getting that propaganda. We just happen to see all of the movies that we see. You know, there's a Black person that's the gangster, the bad guy. The villains are Black. They're wearing Black. They're dark. And so all of that, I think, feeds into our psyche. And so I think this is why it's really, really important that we continue to share our full history, not just being enslaved for those of us that are in the United States, but our full world history. And even in that enslavement, the beauty of the culture, the beauty of the work, the beauty of everything that we brought to this country and to the world. So I do think that we have to spend a lot of time and work. It is extra energy, and I hate that for us, that we have to expend that extra energy. But it's necessary that we don't believe these negative stigmas and negative stereotypes that are forced upon us against our will, and that we continue to, within our communities, continue to propagate all the goodness that we are. So it's work, it's extra work. It's unfair that we have to do the extra work, but it's necessary.
It is. It is so necessary. And speaking to what the tools that we need to survive, to negotiate and to fight back, I'm thinking about, because a lot of these skills you have, so I would like for you to just share them with us. Um, okay, I'm trying to think. So one of the roles that you had with General Electric Vernova was diversity or chief diversity officer, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the fact that when you graduated from Tuskegee, or better yet, when you started at GE, that role didn't exist. It wasn't even there. It didn't exist. And now we're in a time where maybe it won't again, but there's a certain level of vision that you have. And I think that's one of those skills.
Yeah.
Can you speak to any other skill that we may have, and not necessarily skill, but maybe mindset, perspective, to
Yeah.
say, here's how we can think about the next 10 years, because we
Yeah.
don't know what that'll look like. Because I really think it's interesting to think about, in 93, we have an Afro-Latina girl with an electrical engineering degree from HBCU, had this wonderful career. What skill, what mindset do you have that you think you could
Yeah.
share with us?
It's so I spent some time in Nigeria, and what was so beautiful about living in Lagos for those 4 years was I could very clearly see the ties to community.
Mm,
Right. I had a wake up call because I thought Lagos was going to be like Tuskegee. Like, this is my place. It's just like Tuskegee. It was not. Because I was different. I was American. I was
mm,
Oibo. I was other when I was there. And so that was a little disheartening. But by the same token, I found my place and I found my tribe. And I did find my acceptance in the folks that were there. But one of the most powerful things that I saw was just this spirit of community and the spirit of helping each other. The community is what's important. It's not always the individual, but it's the community. And I think that more than anything is one of the things that we're going to continue to need. I've been hearing on podcasts and other as I listen to other thought leaders, everybody is talking about playing their role. The strategists should strategize, the activists should agitate, the teachers should teach. Like, those of us that are in spaces and have a skill set and have a specialty, it's time for us to be all in helping the community to continue to grow. And that's not to say that there haven't been people doing that. I think it's time for us to maybe double down on some of that and continue. There is an assault on history and teaching children history. We know that that is bad for a lot of different reasons, but specifically for us, what we just talked about a little while ago was there are so many negative images and portrayals of us that we see. It's going to be even more necessary that we teach our children our history. It's going to be even more necessary that we teach them the financial tools and the financial skills that they need to have in order to grow. There is some thinking that, no, well, I won't say there's some thinking. It's been a while since you've been able to stay in a career for 30 years. I'm probably one of the last people that has been able to stay in a career for 30, 40 years in one company and grow in that one company. So the new thing is portfolio careers, or people having, moving to different places. I think there's a strategy to doing that right, and we can talk about that as well. But I do think that helping people with it can be corporate, but it can be corporate and having an investment portfolio and having a real estate portfolio and having some businesses that you may run where you don't have to operate them, right? You own them, you stay connected to them, but you hire an operator to run your business. I think there's some different ways that we can teach each other how to thrive in the environment that we're going into. The good news is we know how to do that, right? We know how to pivot. We know how to shift. We know how to take lemons and make a whole meal from them, right?
Yes.
Just make something that is not going to sustain, but also, ooh, oh, that was excellent, right?
Hmm.
Feed our bodies, but also feed our souls. We know how to do that. Again, unfair that we have to, but I do think that that's part of our superpower. And so when we think about being in a corporate space, um, the things that work against us sometimes are the things that also make us resilient.
Mm.
And so we have, in a lot of instances, the tools that we need to thrive, not just survive, but thrive in almost any environment that we get into. I think sometimes we shut down a little bit, or we get a little bit concerned because we're not familiar. And I would just encourage us to, use the skills that we have to really, really thrive.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. One of the biggest thing that I heard from you was community,
Yeah.
and this sense of, relying on each other and sustaining each other. As you were speaking, the African proverb, I am because we are,
Yeah.
right? And so that came to mind. But then, oh, so many segues. Absolutely love that you brought up how novel the novelty of your career, to say you were successful in one company for that length of time, because that was one of my questions. And I think about this being someone that just started my career. I'm an educator, 26, and me and my friends talk about all the time. Are we supposed to pour all of our passions and talents into this singular space? Should we explore multiple avenues? Because just from our conversation, I can tell that you're dynamic, you're multifaceted, have a lot of interests and talents. So how can we navigate being such a well-rounded, full person with a lot of interests in a capitalist society that says get a 9 to 5 and work?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to spend some time evaluating your values and your passions.
Wow.
Like understanding yourself and having better knowledge of yourself, I think is the first step to doing that. So I'll give an example. Some of my you know, one of the things I do with my coaching clients, and a skill that I learned, was to ask them about, give me a time when you were just operating at your best. Your performance was at its best, but you also felt
Mm.
alive. Like, describe that for me. And so as I listen to them, I pull out the parts of it and the components of that that would speak to their values. And then the next question becomes, okay, if you value leadership, so for me, one of my values is leadership. Another one of my values is growth. Another one is balance. So if those are the things that I value, how is that showing up in the work that I'm doing? Right? How is it showing up in my 9 to 5?
Yeah.
How is it showing up in my community work? How is it showing up in everything that I do? One of my experiences, I remember I had to have been in first grade and we were doing a book report. And you know how some people are really scared to get up into the front of the room and speak? That was not me. It has never been me. So I was so excited to get up in front of this group and to tell them this exciting book that I read and everything about it. And I was just so excited to share. Now, had I really nurtured that from first
First grade.
grade, I would have probably been a public speaker my whole life, not just starting to do more of it now. But that's what I mean. Like, what are the ways that you can, you know, what I wound up doing was incorporating it into my day job. So I spent a lot of time going out to speak, whether it was at Tuskegee, whether it was in the community, but it was representing my company. So I was doing it for my company versus doing it for me. So what are the ways that you can incorporate know your values and your passions, but incorporate them into the work that you do? But I think the other thing that is critically important, and this is where we get a little caught up, is prioritizing what's important, because there's only so much time in the day.
Yes.
There's only so much energy we have in the day. So how do we prioritize the things and the people that are most important to us? So I'm going to, you know, on that hierarchy for most people, God comes first, right? Mm-hmm. So how am I prioritizing first and foremost my relationship with God? Whether that is my church community, whether that is my prayer life, whether that is the way that I engage spiritually with the world, whatever that looks like for whatever, you know, spirituality that you have. I think that has to be the first, because there is some power to the energy that we generate.
And just being grounded too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So whether you call that the Holy Spirit or whether you call that the universe or whatever you call it, there's power in that. I think the second thing that we have to prioritize is ourselves. Mm-hmm. We absolutely have to prioritize ourselves. That is going to be hard to hear for people who have caretaking responsibilities, whether you're taking care of a parent, taking care of a child, taking care of a significant other, whatever it is, that's going to be really, really hard. But you really do have to prioritize yourself, not just to do the things you want to do now, but that investment, just like any other investment, you have to be investing for the future. So at my age, had I not started the journey of eating right and exercising and all of those things 20, 30 years ago, I would be in a much different place right now. I might not be in a place where I am excited and energized to be on my journey of my second career, right? So you have to invest. So I think those are the first two things. But then beyond that, you have to think about, okay, if it's the 9 to 5, okay, great. We have to, make money. We have to be able to bring money in. If it's the community, excellent. But is it every community organization, or is there a place where I can focus and really dedicate my time and energy in the community that gives, but also brings me joy? Absolutely. Right. And so I think we have to prioritize, because we cannot do everything. And we have to make sure that we are having the biggest impact, but also that biggest impact means to us as well, and what brings us joy.
You couldn't have outlined that more clearly. And I'm glad this is recording so I don't have to take notes, because wow, that's the biggest question. And I think, especially as a young professional, we spend so much of our time trying to figure out, well, how do I stay happy? But then I also have to make a living. I also may want to accomplish this goal. And you feel pulled in a bunch of ways and exhausted, and as if there's too much to figure out. At least I definitely feel like that. So I love your hierarchy.
Those are all great. I missed like a really, really important component, which is, what's your vision? What's the vision for the future? What do you want to be when you are, pick whatever age it is. And I would say pick a far out age, right? None of us knows what's going to happen in the future, right? Fine. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be laying the groundwork and a strong foundation for us to be there in the future. So pick whatever age that you are. What do I want that to look like? When I retire from my career, what do I want that to have accomplished? What do I want the vision of what I'm doing to look like? What do I want my monetary situation to look like? And I think keeping that vision in mind helps you with the work that you have to do along the way to get there, because the work is not always fun, right? I'm a runner, right? I don't always enjoy my workouts. I was doing for a long time 5Ks, duathlons. I did sprint triathlons for a little while. Training is not always fun. But if my goal is to be competitive in a duathlon, then I have to do the work in order to get there. Um, Putting 15% of my paycheck into an investment account is not fun. I can go on some nice trips with that 15%, but it's laying the foundation for a future that I want to have. So, having that vision, and sometimes having the vision up somewhere where you can see it to say that's what I'm working towards. That's what I'm pushing towards. Helps you with the when things get hard and when you're
Yes.
trying to figure out the priorities and do I do this or do I do this? Do I take that trip or do I invest this money? And sometimes you might be in a space that says mentally I actually need to take the trip because I'm not in a good space right now. And so that's what's going to be best for me and my mental health,
Mm.
still working towards that vision. And sometimes it's going to be, you know what? We invest the money because that's what we need to do. But you have to have the vision and then make those determinations when you come to some of those crossroads.
Wow. For the first time, because we talk about values, passion, vision in our Dreambeacon My Career GPS. So when it comes up, I said, "Wow, the the recipe
Yeah,
works. It's
yeah.
guaranteed every time." But this is the first time that I'm thinking about your vision as an accountability partner.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
just blew my mind because it's like as long as I remember and keep in mind what I decided I want to work towards or I want to have, I want to experience, every decision has to be aligned with that.
Absolutely.
All right now, Miss Tanya. Because now that does put the onus on you to make responsible choices all the time.
It does. And that sounds like adulting is hard. Like
But you know what?
it
Because
is.
it is so hard. And the debate that you just put, the two options you laid out. Okay, do I take this trip? And I love it that you tied it to it's still prioritizing me.
Yeah.
Because I think we do get to a space where do I keep going towards burnout? Do
Right.
I suck it up and be the strong Black woman because success
Right.
or wow, I
Yeah.
love it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And if you don't have the money for the trip, across an ocean, like find some place driving distance, right? Find some place that is, there's a nature preserve 15 minutes from my house. And I mentioned earlier, before we started recording, that I like to hike. Well, I don't have hiking in flat Central Florida, but I have a few nature preserves that I can just go walk around and be in the trees and be with the birds and there's nothing there but me and nature. And sometimes just 30 minutes there is like, okay, kind of got myself back now. All right, I'm good. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go take on the world. So sometimes it's not getting on an airplane. Sometimes it's not going. Sometimes it's just, this is all I have the time to do or the money to do right now. And this is what I'm going to go do for me.
What I love, and this is why we're having this conversation, right? To have your wisdom be shared with the community of people who are still trying to figure it out. So thank you so much. I'm
Absolutely.
thinking about still while we're kind of on the subject of work-life balance,
Yeah.
what did it look like for you in your 20s versus in this era of being in your second career?
Yeah.
You are a mother, but empty nester now, right? So, like, tell me what the difference between work life balance then versus now looks like.
So I'm going to be 100% honest with you and say the 20s are just a very special time because you do have more energy. So I was, I don't actually want my kids to have the same like experience that I had. Not my experience was not bad, but I love that they are on their journey and their journey looks different than mine. By 29, I mentioned my father passed away when I was 29, so I'll say by 30. By 30, I had a husband. I had two children that I was taking care of. I had my mom that had moved in with us that I was taking care of. This was all by 30, right? So I had big responsibilities. A lot of us, what my children have right now is if everything goes wrong, like everything goes wrong, they have a place to come, right? They are safe. At 30, I was the place to come, right? I had to be my own safe space to come. There was no safety net. There was
Mm.
nothing that I could rely on to go back to. Um, and so I just had a lot more energy to do so much more. So it was nothing for me to, be up early in the morning and go for my run or go to the gym and lift weights and then come home and get everybody dressed and get the kids to daycare and then go to work and work, 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 work. Fortunately, at the beginning of my career is when we just started having laptops. Imagine a world before laptops. And so I could leave the office at 5 o'clock. So I have to leave at 5 because I have to pick my children up from daycare by 6. So pick my kids up from daycare by 6, go home, make dinner, get them a bath, get them, in the bed, and then fire up that laptop and continue to do my work. And I could do that until 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then 11 o'clock at night, and then go to sleep, get up, do the same thing tomorrow, and then still have the energy on Friday night to go to happy hour and party, and still have the energy on Saturday to go to sorority meeting. And so, so I say that to say I didn't always do it right. I did not always have my priorities right, but having your priorities, 20s was a little bit easier because I just did have so much energy. Um, Now I have to be a lot more intentional about where I'm spending my time. And I actually, I do coaching, but I actually hired a coach to help me with all of the things. And what we came to was you're going to have to say no to some things. Like you're just going to have to let some things go. And I said, but I don't want to. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. And some of these are responsibilities. So I have responsibilities to my sorority. I have responsibilities to other organizations that I belong to. And so she said, okay, well, let's talk about what your vision, what your goal is, what you want to bring to the world. And so my passion is on developing people, very specifically helping to develop Black women. She said, I love that. And by the way, my coach doesn't look like me, but she said, I love that for you. She said, so can I ask you a question? If it's not that, and you're not getting paid for it, right? So if it's a volunteer and it's not developing Black women, can I get you to say no? And I was like, I'll try it. I'll try it. And so I've had a number of asks like, can you do this? And I'm like, is that helping me develop Black women? It's not. No, I'm sorry, I can't. Um, Now in my coaching, like coaching is different, right? I'm coaching a lot of different people. Matter of fact, but it's what I love to do. Um, but it gives me space that when our community is calling me and saying, hey, I just need a little bit of help. I don't need coaching. I just need a little bit of help. I was like, I got some capacity for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's within the things that I want to do.
Yes.
So what we do for our careers is not always the same thing we do like for our community, but the community is it's necessary work, but it is also outside of the God, myself, my family, like that priority. And so I have started to have to be a little bit more intentional about where I'm spending my time. My husband and my mom are the two that I live with me, that I'm responsible for. And when I say responsible for my husband, responsible for being a responsible partner for him. I don't have to
Yes.
take care of him. But those are the two people that I prioritize the most. And so when I think about what I have to do, most people know even before I retired, round about 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I'm out of commission. I'm sitting down to have dinner with my mother, and then we're going to watch an episode or two or a movie or something like that. That is my time for her. And that's non negotiable. I might answer the phone, but I'm probably also going to tell you, is this quick? Because if it's not, can I call you back a little bit later?
Yes.
We just have to balance our priorities and our energy a little bit different. But it all starts with what are your priorities and where do you want to be spending your time?
I'm so just energized, and I want you to know that you are absolutely, and I'm glad that you took this opportunity today and gave us your time because
Yeah.
you are developing Black women through this conversation.
Oh, thank you.
I know for myself, for all of my friends, the people that I know, this idea of being a people pleaser. We're saying yes to things because we feel compelled to, we feel responsible to, we have an obligation. It feels like, whether it's with our community or the people, or if it's at work. Can you do this? Yep, let me add it. And so this idea of yes, 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 yes. And even though we want to say no, maybe I'm dead tired. I need to say no. But
Yeah.
then I feel bad. And so for you to have this conversation of, well, let me first identify my value, my
Yeah.
priorities, what truly matters, and always round it back to that.
Yeah.
Then do I decide to say yes or no? Wow. I love
And
that.
your vision of that looks like your vision of that.
Yes. But you have to
And
see
I
it
love that.
first.
So some people will make the evaluation that this Fortune 5 company that they're working for, they want to be the CEO of that company. And so doing the happy hours and doing the weekend networking and doing those things becomes a part of the priority towards that vision. And then some people say, I don't see myself here in 10 years. Not that it's a bad place, but I see myself getting a certain experience from this, and then moving on to do something else. And so those happy hours and those weekend may not be the best use of time. But it's what it looks like for you. And you cannot look at anyone else and say, what they're doing is exactly what's right for me. Now, if it's someone you're aspiring to be, if it's the CEO of the company, then that's a study for you. That's okay. What is that person doing, and how are they dressing, and how are they behaving, and what are they doing socially, and then is that right for me? And
Yes.
then if it's not right for me, then is there an adjacency? So if I don't drink, but I see that the CEO is just a red wine connoisseur, and that is just what the CEO does. Peace. He can be a red wine connoisseur. I may learn enough to have some type of conversation with that person. But if I don't drink, I don't drink. I shouldn't. That's a value that gets to like the prioritization and the value of me and what I want to do and what I want to be. And that I don't think we should compromise. I do think there is a level of, we get asked a lot. There's a scale of authenticity to assimilation that a lot of times we get asked to do, is just like be on the assimilation side of this. I would love a world where we can be our authentic selves and it's just accepted in every space that we're in. I don't recommend that people assimilate. And I feel like if you have to wholesale change who you are in every space that you're in, it's probably not the right space to be. But I do think that there is a level of flexing that might be necessary to be as effective as you want to be able to communicate the way that you need to communicate. But as long as it's not taking you so far into, assimilation to where it just hurts to do it over time, I don't recommend that. And we all do that. So that's we think about it in this context, especially in our community of race, and how we have to code switch. And we code switch in our own community. You don't walk into church and you don't walk into grandmama's house talking the same way you're talking at the club and you're talking with your friends. So we do some level, and we're multilingual, we're bilingual
Yes.
that way, right? It's just the type of vernacular that we use. But again, it's flexing for situations where you have to do this wholesale assimilation, and where that assimilation goes against your values, and goes against who you are. I don't recommend that. I don't
Yes.
recommend that at all.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I'm thinking also too, especially as we think about who we are and our identities in this space. I'm playing with this idea of, are we being young, a woman, and minority being black in a workspace going after leadership opportunities? Kind of when you feel uncertain about doing it, you don't want to offend anybody, right? Like, I don't want my youngness to offend somebody to say I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
Or the question is, are we playing it small or just playing politics? Like,
Um,
which one are we doing? And can you speak to going after leadership opportunities?
yeah, this one is probably a longer conversation than what I can answer in just a few minutes.
Okay.
But I will say two things. One, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you don't communicate what your goals are, what your aspirations are, then no one knows, and people want to help you. I found especially in the workplace, or let me say this, in the culture that I grew up in the company that I worked for, people wanted to help. I never had a problem finding a mentor, whether that was I just need some quick advice, or I would like for you to be a longer term mentor. I never had a problem getting that from anybody, from our Black ERG, from my leadership that did not look anything like me. I never had a problem with that. When people see folks that they're willing to invest time and energy in, when they see people who get the work done, who have a level of tenacity, who have a level of wanting to just do good work, they'll invest some time and energy in it. So closed mouths don't get fed. And also, within some spaces, you do have to figure out what is the right way to say that. And so sometimes it's not going to someone and saying, I'm ready to be the CEO. Sometimes the right way of saying is, I would like to, at some point in time, be the CEO. Can you help me with what are the skill sets I need to build? What are the things that you see that might help me on that journey? What are some of the things that you see that might hurt me in that journey? And ask those questions. So there's a way to say and talk about what you aspire to. I think what gets a lot of people in I won't say in trouble, is that from the outside, like a lot of us, I think sometimes feel like we're ready and may not be. And then sometimes I think the old school folks are like, well, I mean, it takes time for you to get there. So you need to just wait your turn. And there's a balance in that, right? Okay. There's a balance in that. So I do recommend, doing the work, doing the really hard evaluation of yourself and how you are doing and the skills that you have built. And do you know how to do that? Or are you an expert at it? Because those are two completely different things. And if you're saying, I'm ready to go to the next because I know how to do that, you're probably going to get feedback. If you're saying, I'm ready to go to the next because I am an expert, or even like very skilled, like the step before being an expert, that's something completely different. And so I think you have to do that evaluation. I think you have to listen to the feedback that you're getting, but also listen to that feedback and evaluate what is it trying to tell you that you can use. As an example, I got told for most of my career that I was too nice. You're too nice.
Ooh, Miss Tanya, please enlighten me, because that's what I hear too.
Yeah, well, here's what it took me a while to figure this out. So I'm an engineer, so I'm a little bit of a literal person. What people were trying to tell me was that I was having a hard time holding people accountable. Those are two different things, because when somebody told me I was too nice, I was like, what about it? I don't want to be an a-hole. I don't want to be I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to. And so, but saying like, you need to do a better job at holding people accountable is something completely different, because there is a kind way to hold people accountable that I could have been doing a better job at doing. Versus not really listening to that feedback and understanding what it was trying to tell me and then doing something about it, right? So sometimes you get feedback and it is the wrong feedback. Like sometimes you're just getting bad feedback. And so you have multiple places that you get the feedback from. Some of that is reading the room. Some of that is reading how people are interacting with you and saying, okay, something's not right here. Like, and your intuition, like spending time with that energy of the universe, right? That's telling you something. It's like, okay, something's not right here. So I may need to pivot and figure out what this is. So get more feedback, especially if you disagree or you don't like the feedback that you got. But sometimes it's listening to the feedback and really evaluating or being curious and asking the next question. Okay, if I'm too nice, what does that mean? And what does that look like to you? And what would it look like to you if I wasn't nice? Then I probably would have gotten a little bit more feedback to, I get what you're saying now. Okay, I can work with that feedback and I can make that change. So.
Thank you so much, because that was really insightful and it hits home especially. So thank you. Similar but different. I want to think about what was the role or what is the role of Black women in your success. So I'm thinking about friendship, especially, when you're charting out career, life, work-life balance, because I'm really big on friendship and community. So if you could just speak to
Yeah.
what that means for you.
Um, I don't think I can say enough about what Black women have meant to me, like throughout my life. Um, so whether it is family members, aunties, and the way that they love you and take care of you, my best friend, we've been best friends since second grade. So we go way back to the south side of Chicago, and so I have these friends that I have just picked up everywhere along the way, from the south side of Chicago to Birmingham to Lagos, Nigeria, to just women that, and my tribe in particular is folks that will uplift you, always have a kind word, are always exploring. So they're also, what I find from a lot of them is they are also pushing themselves and looking to grow, but that also are going to tell you, you're wrong, you're wrong. Like, yeah, you probably could have said that better, done that better. Like, um, so whether it is folks giving me advice, whether it's in the workplace, whether it is people that gave me opportunities, because I had a number of Black women to give me opportunities, um, that's always been a safe space. So that's not to say that white men haven't given me opportunities. That's not to say I haven't had some great mentors who were white men. Um, it's just different with Black women. That's just my tribe, right? It just is. And we just, from the ways that we communicate to the ways that we engage, it just like matches, right? It just matches. So from the, walking down the street, running into someone, there is a language, there is even without saying anything, just, that you just
Mm-hmm.
have, and and I love that. I love that. And I would not be where I am without the Black women who have taken care of me. Again, not to diminish any of the other communities of Black men, of my people that I gelled with in the workplace that did not look like me, the people from around the world that I gelled with that did not look like me, because I think we all share, the people that I found had some level of values, but there is just a connection with
Yes.
Black women that I can't explain it. I wish I could put it into words. I know I'm rambling on here. I can't put it into
No,
words.
but
It's just a
to
feeling.
your point, we get it. And I feel
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And through that, it almost feels like, when we are thinking about those priorities again, your circle keeps you fed, right? If you have a good one, it should. They should keep you fed. And so when we think, all right, if God and me, your circle should be feeding you, pouring into you, supporting you. And that's the value of
Absolutely.
choosing good friends.
My
So,
my my best friend's mom told me really early in my marriage, and actually I don't know if she told me or my best friend told me, but it was advice she got from her mom. It was
uh-huh.
like, listen, your husband is gonna be, if y'all do it right, that's gonna be your best friend. It's gonna be the person that you go to for so many things. And my husband is. I have an amazing husband. If you think about graduating in electrical engineering in 1993, I left Tuskegee and went into a technical sales role, which means I was on the road a lot. I was traveling a lot. I was visiting customers. My husband, to me retiring and moving on to my next career, my husband is amazing. She also told me, keep your girlfriends close. Like you're going to need your girlfriends. And I'm so glad I took that advice. So from the, like, hey y'all, let's just meet up somewhere in the middle of all of us for a
Hmm.
weekend. Like we used to do. I did that with my line sisters. I do that with my girlfriends now. Like we plan trips. um, I had an opportunity I got some great tickets to Beyonce, to her last tour. I'm like, hey, listen, so let me tell you how fast this worked. because I have friendship circles, and it's not that they all wouldn't get along. I just like we operate a little bit
Oh, we
differently. So
get it. Yeah.
I have multiple friend groups. So I sent a text message out to three different friend groups as soon as I knew I had access to these tickets, and I was like, "Hey, y'all want to see Beyonce on this date? This is around about what it's going to cost. Who wants to go?" Like, and within 15 minutes, and the 15 minutes was just people that I had to like send another text. And so when they saw me blowing up, they're like, "Okay, Tanya doesn't text me multiple times unless she needs an answer. So okay, let me
Right.
look at it. Oh yeah, I'm in." Right. So how do we get together and have us a good old time? And then what's like really really fun about that, especially at the age that I am, is bringing my daughter into it. So my daughter came to Beyonce with her best friend, and it like seeing that the power of that circle of women is
Across generations.
across
And
generations.
that's what this is. And I'm so grateful for your time this morning because there's a thread of this amazingness that just spans us over time, over place. As you mentioned, you have global connections. And so I just absolutely love that. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Real quick, this is going to be like our fast round.
Okay.
We talked about earlier, we mentioned music and
Yeah.
books and movie and all of the things.
Yeah.
So if you can give me both an old school artist you love and a new one.
Um, Old school is Stevie Wonder. Like Stevie Wonder, he did a concert. Oh, this is maybe 10 years ago. I don't know how long it was, where it was just songs in the key of life. And I like it was like Beyonce. As soon as I saw it, like it pop up, I was like, oh no, I got tickets. I'm going. Who's going with me? Like it's done. I'm going. I don't care who else is going with me or not. I'm going. So Stevie Wonder. New artists, there are so many that I like, but because this was my theme song for a few years, like I'm loving Coffee. Because
Yes.
Toast is my theme song. It's all about gratitude. It's all about cheering. It's about community and
Mm-hmm.
those that are with you. So Coffee. So yeah, those are the two that I name.
Fire. Okay. Books. Give me a recent read that you recommend and like maybe an all-time favorite.
Um, so a recent one that I read, there's um, a love song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams.
Hold on. Because wait a minute. One thing about it, and this was not scripted. We look 10 out of 10.
I loved I loved that book. I really, really
Mhm.
did. So what's the other another book of Tia Williams that I loved was what was it? 7 Days in June.
7 days in June across. That was a good one.
It was just so powerful. And part of the love for it is that the characters are not just like they're the good people and they're the like no, they are complex characters, and they've had some challenges, and in some of it they've had a little bit of identity crisis, and but they come back to this place of finding love and connection, and so I love it. So those are like my two of my reads. My old school uh, one of my favorite books. I'm going to give you two authors, and one of them may be a little unconventional. But I love The Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas. I just do.
Oh,
I just do. The other song that I can go back and read over and over again is The Wake of the Wind by J. California Cooper. It is just one of those books that, and I can't explain why. It just resonated with me. But yeah, those are my fiction books. I do a lot of nonfiction that, but I listen to that on audio more than reading it. I the books that we just talked about, I read.
mm-hmm.
Some of them, like the Three Musketeers, I have in hardcover. Most of them I read on my phone or my computer. I have The Wake of the Wind in hardcover too that I will go back to. But I read a lot of like nonfiction, self help that I mostly listen to on Audible. The one that I'm reading right now is Main Street Millionaire. So
Great.
it was a good one. It's a good one so far.
Yes. And this is just for me because I love love. And one of our last episodes was featuring Step and Miss Michelle.
Oh,
Where did you and your husband meet?
Tuskegee.
Mm.
Tuskegee.
I left Lincoln without a Lincoln man. So I love hearing.
Listen,
The
my
stories.
husband and I met. So we both went to a pre-freshman summer program for people in engineering, for engineering students. Now, my husband subsequently changed his major to finance.
I
He
couldn't
did not
hang.
stay
I'm
in
joking.
engineering. But we met the first week and maybe even the first day that we were there hanging out on the fountain at Tuskegee. Now, we didn't start dating until we were both pledging our respective sorority and fraternity. But that's when we started dating, and we've been, thick as thieves ever since. But my husband really is my best friend. Like, so um, he's recently gone on to a political journey, and it was one that I was like, I don't know about this, but I'm here for you. Like let's do this. And it's been an interesting revelation because it's been an opportunity for me to support him more as a friend and more as a like bringing my corporate life into versus my wife. Like we all wear different hats and have different roles, but it was a really challenging experience, but we got closer. I'll say one last thing. I had there was a lot about couples during the pandemic, and
Mhm.
folks that spent a lot of time with each other and realized that they did not like each other anymore.
Yes.
That was not our experience. Like we were having fun and we were laughing again. It felt almost like we were in college again sometimes because we were in those close quarters the whole time and laughing and having a good time. So sometimes those, challenges and hard times can pull people apart. But when you have that foundation of really strong friendship, our relationship has evolved over time, but we have gotten even closer as friends over that time. So that's my
I
ride or
love
die.
it. Yes. And thank you for sharing the tangible advice of friendship.
Yeah,
As long as you have that, right? Like that's the key. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This has been absolutely wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been wonderful to meet you, to know more about your story. You're phenomenal.
Thank you.
Real quick, if you could let us know. Well, I don't know. Is there like, are you on social media? Could we follow you on anything?
You
Is that
can, and I'm
okay?
in the process of changing my social media. So when I was in the corporate world, I had two profiles for everything. I didn't really do so good with my public profile. I spent more time on my personal profile, but those were all locked. So I'm in the process of changing my locked profiles to my one profile. That's a little terrifying for me right now. So I would say the best place to catch me and to get a lot is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So it's Tanya E. Spencer. I will show up as Tanya E. Spencer. It's this journey that I'm on of entrepreneurship is new, so I have a little bit more that I'm transitioning around some of my profiles. But look for Tanya E. Spencer, and that's where I will show up on most platforms.
Well, thank you. We are excited to follow you on LinkedIn, but more importantly, to wish you the best of luck on journey number two. It's going to be phenomenal.
Can I just say, I love what y'all are doing. I
Yeah.
absolutely love this that you all are pulling in because I've watched the podcast, and so you're pulling in cross generational leadership, right? And I think that's so important. We get sometimes caught up in, well, them old folks don't know what they talking about, or them young folks don't know nothing, or there is so much knowledge to be shared across generations. So I absolutely love the work that you all are doing to empower specifically your cohort, your generation of folks. But I think there's a lot that those of us that have been around for a while can learn by
Yes.
listening to what you're experiencing right now. And that's how you learn. If you want to stay relevant, you have to continue to listen and learn to everyone.
And that's it. Thank you so much for getting the vision. This has been amazing. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday
Thank
and
you.